announced his resignation last night. It's also the new crop of candidates who may well reflect our more polarised and radical political landscape. Earlier today on 5 Live, I spoke to one of them, Labour's candidate in Pudsey, Jane Aitchison. I asked her about previous comments from her fellow Labour candidate Zara Sultana that she would celebrate the deaths of Tony Blair and Benjamin Netanyahu.
What I'm saying is that we've got people who say these things. Should they all be banned from standing? Are we only going to allow
Well, I'm
saints
asking you a
to
specific.
stand?
Do you think she should be able to stand for saying she would celebrate the deaths of Tony Blair and Benjamin Netanyahu? You've just got through a selection process to be the candidate here.
I think I'd like to talk to her and see what she was really trying to say, and is she apologising? I don't know. If she's apologising, then I think that would be okay.
I mean, as I say,
You've
had your own experiences because of this.
Do celebrate deaths sometimes. It's not good, is it? Is it really good to celebrate deaths? It's not. But people do sometimes because they feel strongly about whatever that person represented.
Sorry, I have to just pause on that. You've actually just said sometimes people do celebrate deaths.
Of course they do.
So you sound like you're defending what could be a celebration of the death of Tony Blair.
No, I'm not. But I'm
that's
saying,
what she said.
I'm not. What I'm saying is that people, for instance, they celebrated the death of Hitler.
Should we bemoan a world in which politics feels more adversarial, or welcome an era of genuine difference and therefore choice for voters? I'm joined now by the author and activist Maya Goodfellow and by Alice Thompson from The Times. I mean, Maya, if I start with you there, it was a very striking moment in an interview. It was a very long delay, 12 seconds or so, till she could find the words perhaps to say what she wanted to say to her Labour candidate colleague there. But I actually think what she said after that, where she essentially conflated the celebration of the death of Hitler that some people may have done with then in the same breath as what we've been talking about, which was the celebration of the death of Tony Blair, a leader of her own party, a former leader, and Benjamin Netanyahu. That was the thing that made people's eyebrows raise.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's particularly helpful. And I think what is more interesting about what is happening at the moment is the substance of policy. So
but just on that, is the length, perhaps, that at times when you are tribal with people, that you perhaps feel you have to go to say, well, I sort of see what they were trying to do there, and you end up in a different place, perhaps?
I mean, I think potentially, and I think, you know, when you have colleagues thinking about whether you're going to defend them or not and thinking about what they've said, it obviously is important. But I do think that this actually goes beyond the issues of individual people, and what we're seeing, like what we've seen today with the Labour Party, I think is a shift in terms of policy, which is incredibly important. If you think about, you know, we talk about the so-called centre ground or so-called moderates. I don't really think we're living in a country where the centre ground is particularly moderate. I think it's very extreme. If you look at the state of our country, you look at the fact that 4 million children are in poverty, you look at the fact 1 in 50 households last year had to use food banks, and what Labour are proposing on things like climate change is incredibly important. So saying we're going to invest I
think it's important to talk about the policies, but specifically we're just talking about people here, because politics is also people, and it's trusting that those people will do those things, and that's what it comes down to. And you know, for people to just hear the conflation of the death of Blair with Hitler there, they may think, what's happened there? Equally on the Tory side, Alice, if I could just bring you in on this week we saw Andrew Bridgen, a Conservative MP, try to defend the remarks of Jacob Rees-Mogg with regards to the Grenfell Tower, saying we want clever men like him, I'm paraphrasing, to be in charge of the country, sort of going to ground again in this tribal way.